So okay, there we go. So we all have moments that define us, and I want to share one with you today. For 4 years, I was a consultant to the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, and as part of my job, I was responsible for reforming the way any one of the 3 million Texans apply for food stamps, Medicaid, or cash assistance. And as part of that time period, I was responsible for reporting and analysis, and for a brief period, I managed the quality control department of the call center in which we ran. So one day I flew up to Midland. One day I flew up to Midland, Texas, and put on a headset and sat with an agent and listened to calls all day. And there was one call in particular that I still remember very clearly. It was a woman from Houston who was set to renew her food stamp benefits. There was one problem, though. Her benefits were about to expire, and in order to renew your benefits, you need to have an appointment with a case manager at the state. Well, it turns out that this appointment was scheduled to be 1 month after her food stamps were yet to expire. So the call center agent researched, and it turns out that the woman filled out all of her paperwork on time, but because there wasn't enough capacity within the agency, they just didn't have enough people to schedule the interviews. So the woman asked a very simple question. She said, "What am I supposed to do in the month between when my food stamps expire and when my interview is?" And the agent, as compassionate as she could, told her that her best advice was to find the nearest food pantry. So I flew back to Austin, and I just started brainstorming, and I started researching this call center experience. And I found other problems. There's an IVR system that the clients would listen to while they're on hold. And I'm just going to play a small sample.
Hold while I gather your case information. Our records show that your case includes the following programs: food stamps, medical assistance, medical assistance, medical assistance, medical assistance,
It gets worse, but I'll spare that. And this is exactly how it felt at that time. There's two stories that are very important here. There's the story of the Houston mom, which happened over and over and over again during that period. But I also want you to think about the agent. Imagine this. You're 2 years out of high school. You're making $9.50 per hour, and you've just had 10 phone calls like that before 10 a.m. It's stressful. So how do we get here? Turns out there's a lot of reasons. I'm going to share some data with you. This, everything in blue here basically means the percentage of food stamp applications that were processed late during that time period. And some of these reasons were uncontrollable. For example, this was Hurricane Ike, and a lot of workers in Texas worked really, really hard to help the victims of Hurricane Ike and their families. But this happened during the financial crisis. So as I listened to that phone call, and as others went through those experiences, that's what was going on during that period. We were failing. The social safety net was failing. But I was failing the agent. There I was supposed to be a director out of corporate, out of Austin, and I just didn't have answers for that agent. So I went back, got my team together, and we started brainstorming what are some things that we can do to fix these problems. And we came up with basically a concept that if we could ease the anxiety of that agent, then maybe the anxiety of some of the callers would go down as well. So we had a few simple ideas. We had a bunch of initiatives, but I want to share one with you today. Inspired by an Edward Tufte class, our team got together and sketched this out. And what this is basically is the screen that the agent would be able to see the immediate second that that phone call came in. So they could see very quickly what the problem was with the caller. And they could just mouse over to drill in a little bit further. So on the bottom, what you see is instant things that were started by the client, the caller. On the top are things that were started by the state. But at that point, that was just conceiving it and building a prototype. It was then my job to get it through one of the largest agencies in the entire country. And I hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock for months and months and months and months to get this idea through. In fact, my company at the time wasn't even responsible for the call center software. So there were a lot of things that we had to get through, and there were so many nights where I would come back 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, lace up my running shoes, and just go for a run and just try to calm down from the day and just try to figure out how are we going to be able to get through this roadblock at that time. And after a while, I just quit asking for the answer on the runs because they weren't coming, and I just asked for a little bit of clarity. And every now and then, we'd get some of that clarity. And then we'd get invited to more meetings. More ideas were implemented. And then we got invited to more meetings with deputy commissioners, directors within the agency. More initiatives went through, our team got bigger, until finally we were able to get through this crisis. And now we were one small cog in a very big wheel, and I'm very proud of the way the state handled that crisis, and they're getting better every day. But I want to go back to that call. There was another part of it that I became obsessed with over the past 3 years, and that part of it was the statement that the agent made when she said, "Go find the nearest food pantry." I started to look, well, what would I do if I was looking for the nearest food pantry? And I dug around and was floored at how poor the technology was. So I started a company that basically makes it really simple for people to find out exactly where to start. And it turns out it all starts with a zip code. So in just a few seconds, you can pull up the government programs, the charity programs in your area. It's taxonomized in a really simple way. And with a bit more information, you can even find out exactly how much you qualify for in benefits. And it turns out a lot of the charities that we were talking to did not have a simple way for people to get enrolled in the program. So what would happen is people would queue up in long lines outside of the agency, either it be for food or housing assistance or whatever it may be, or they'd be forced to chase down a fax machine. So we built a simple product that the charities and the government agencies can purchase in order to process those applications faster, while giving dignity to the applicants. No longer did they have to track down ink, a printer, or a fax machine. Our business model is actually pretty simple. We provide a free service to any one of the folks looking for help. We list all of the agencies, and every now and then some of those agencies will need a way of accepting applications online, and those become our customers. But the coolest part about what we're starting to see is the data. I go back to Houston. Of the 221 food pantries in Houston, we did a simple query, and it turns out that only 3 of them are open on Sunday. We're starting to see questions that people haven't even been asking, and we're starting to see those answers. We're starting to see in real time what that supply is. But the cooler part about it is we're starting to see what people are searching for. And that's, I don't even think we know the power of that. We're seeing it by location. We're getting thousands of these per week. And we start to see trends based on the time of year. For example, in the summer, when it's 109 degrees, we see searches for air conditioner repair, fans. Again, imagine what we can do with this over time. And some of the simplest problems that people are searching for that can be solved so easily if we just could get to the right person at the right time. We're optimistic about what we're seeing, but I want you to think a little bit bigger. This is the self-sufficiency continuum. And what that means is that all of us fall into 5 buckets, from thriving all the way to in crisis. We believe in the very near future that a social worker is going to be able to come into the office and visually look at their caseload and get an alert immediately when somebody slides from safe to at risk. We think this is going to happen. And I want you to think a little bit bigger. Imagine being able to plot the health of cities based on real-time data. You can go in and see why are some cities more successful than others. And my hunch is it's more than just the local economy. Maybe there's a network of social workers that works really well together, or churches, or other organizations. You can take those things and you can replicate it in other areas. You can redirect resources. You can make smarter decisions when you're deciding which nonprofits to fund. We did our pilot in the whole state of Texas, which covers 1/12 of the population. We're now rolling out to other cities, and we built a really simple way to do it. So if you're even a small town in Iowa, you can roll out your own city basically just through data entry. So if you're interested, we'd love to talk to you about it, ampertha.com/mycity. It's very simple. I want to end with this, though. The title of this talk is called The Net and the Safety Net. And I've been working in the classical definition of the safety net for the past 11 years. I've also been an advocate for somebody very close to me who's permanently disabled. In that period of time, I learned what the safety net is and what it isn't. And I can tell you, it isn't the internet. The safety net is not an agency. The agency is just a collection of buildings. It's not found at the Capitol. It certainly is not a startup with a funny name. It's something far more important. The safety net is when all of us are faced with that decision, when we see a really big problem and we actually choose to go and tackle it. It's a woman named Marcia that chooses to go be a social worker in the geriatric unit of the state psychiatric facility. It's a guy named Travis that gets back from 2 tours in Iraq, decides to go get his master's degree in counseling and go work at a nonprofit for $30,000 a year. The safety net is every one of us that goes through that moment when we see a big problem and we can't stop thinking about it and we become obsessed with that problem to the point that our friends and family think we're a little bit crazy. But we see it and we get to that moment where that problem is so big, we realize that it's going to take a huge effort. In fact, we realize it's going to take a lifetime commitment to that particular problem. Every one of us has faced that at some point or we wouldn't be here. So to summarize, in those moments when we're feeling insecure and we know it's a big problem, we may feel like we're a kid wearing grown-up clothes, but in those moments, that's the beautiful thing. And if enough of us make that decision, the safety net's going to be just fine. So in summary, it's all of us. Thank you very much.